Hey y'all. All right, I wanted to make a video specifically about um, baking to the control rig or plotting to the control rig and then animating fingers. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've already plotted to the control rig here. So remember what we usually do to save out to Unreal is after you have your character and your source set up, we bake that to skeleton. In the case of further animation in Motion Builder, be it fingers or cleanup or whatever, you want to bake that to the control rig. And when a pop-up pops up, you say FKIK. That will give you some more nuanced controls to use. So I've already baked the control rig, and you can tell it's a control rig because it doesn't look like a white skeleton anymore. It looks like a yellow skeleton with blue and red balls on it. So if I grab onto one of these joints, great thing about a control rig is that other joints come along for the ride. And yes, you can stretch it so it gets a little crazy, but check it out. Even at a certain point, the software knows that this character can't stretch their leg that far without bending some of their other joints. So even though you probably don't want to put them in a splits, and you can mess around with these constraints too to make them a little bit more accurate. But the software did a pretty good job just automatically figuring out those constraints. Okay, but our focus is on fingers here. So here I have an animation from one of the student recordings. So they're up, then they go to sleep, and then they're kind of walking around. The animation's called Walking with Wonder. And I want to just animate these fingers with a little bit more, uh, just a little bit more nuance rather than the knife hands that we have. So ultimately what you end up animating them is obviously going to be determined by your performance. But in this case, why don't we just go in and start modifying some stuff. So like I've said in class, this takes a lot of time to do. The more time you spend on it, the more accurate and probably better that it's going to be. But very quickly we could go in and we could just loosen the hands. So even if you didn't want to animate the entire thing, we could just loosen the hands and make them less knife hands and more just kind of casual fingers. So down in the animation layers panel, there is already an animation layer here. That's with the control rig. I'm going to go ahead and click the green new layer button. This is a new layer just like Photoshop is a new layer. I'm going to right click on this one. I'm going to rename it. I'm just going to call it fingers. And you can create as many animation layers as you need to get the job done. You just want to make sure that you are clicked on that layer when you want to put keyframes on that. For instance, if you look at my timeline right now, I'm clicked on fingers animation layer. There's no visible keyframes on the timeline. If I go and click on base animation, what's going to tell me there's too many keys to edit because I'm zoomed way out. But if I grab onto the handles and I zoom in a little bit, now I can actually see the keys on the base animation layer. You don't want to edit the base animation layer unless you have some problematic keyframes that are flipping a joint backwards or there's just some weird glitch. Then maybe consider deleting keyframes after you've made a save copy. But otherwise, we want to work on animation layers that sit on top of the base animation. So going back to fingers, why don't I grab onto some of these fingers and do something with them. So pro tip here, the F key, just like in Unreal, if you're using the Maya controls in Motion Builder, The F key focuses on whatever it is that you have selected. So if you're zoomed, really weird out, you hit the F key, it will zoom right in on that. So you can quickly jump around. Okay? And we're going to modify some of these fingers. So I might even have to straighten them a little bit. So one thing to note is, see the GLB icon up here. This means global controls, which means that the orientation of this, if I select one of these joints, the orientation of this joint right here, the green, blue, and red, is oriented in the same way that the world is. So, the positive Z is this way, positive X is that way, positive Y is up. If I click on the GLB and change it to local, now the rotation is actually around the joint. And you can see that the translation handles here, the transformation handles, are actually facing the same way as this red joint icon, which is how you want to be animating things. It just makes a lot more sense. So you can rotate, you can translate, whatever it is that you want to do. I'm just going to start to straighten up these fingers just to, they're a little weirdly positioned. So I'm just going to naturally get them into more of a straight position. And then I could grab onto these. And even though I have them all selected, look, all the joints are in the same orientation generally. So I can now go in and adjust. If you wanted to do it with rotation instead, you could. Maybe I don't want to bend them this much. Maybe I just want to give like a softer neutral hand pose. And I didn't grab the pinky yet. Maybe I'll do that too. Select just the pinky by itself. Bring that in. Grab the thumb and loosen that. Oops. Make sure you look at it from all angles because you can do some really weird things to the joints. The red is what's going into the hand, so the red one is what's going to make the fingers bend. And that should be true for most models. I also want to close the hand a little bit too. It's not you don't always have your thumb out like that, just softly out. So again, make sure you're orbiting around, take a look at what you got. Maybe I'll rotate this too. I think that's okay for right now. Yeah, I think that's okay. So now that I've adjusted all these, I want to make sure that I keyframe them. If I go and scrub the timeline now, all my hard work that I just did is going to be gone. So I'm going to select the joints that I modified. And you could put them on separate animation layers if you wanted to and you had some reason to. Now I'm going to click the key button. And you should see that a red key gets laid down right there. This is the only key I have on my entire animation now. So if I go all the way back to the beginning in the T-pose, or I guess not in the T-pose because I'm zoomed in, I go all the way back to the T-pose. The right hand is knife fingers, and the other hand has my modifications done to them. Although the thumb looks a little strange there. So if I only put one keyframe, the fingers are going to stay like that the whole time, which maybe is good enough for you. Certainly looks better than knife hands, but you probably want some actual animation throughout whatever performance it is that you're doing. I'm just going to zoom back in. I'll try to find my keyframe that I did. It's over here, right there. Okay, so, excuse me. So if I scrub back a little bit, you know, maybe I want the hand to be loose here as well. I'm just focusing on the hand. I'm not doing the rest of the body yet. Although I would tend to recommend that you do the big problems first and then you gradually work out on the body. So you'll fix any core problems with the shoulders and elbows and wrist first before you go ahead and do the fingers, because your fixes on the fingers that work that you did might not translate if you go in and you adjust other joints later. Obviously, it's a back and forth. You're going to have to go back and finesse things. But I'm going to lay a keyframe down here, click my key button. And then, I don't know, maybe when the hand comes up, I'll just have it do just like a finger flex. It's good to look at your own hand, assuming it's the same sort of hand as your character has. Same number of joints and stuff, or even not, you know, if your character has 2 fingers, as long as they have the same number of metacarpals, you just take a look at how your fingers actually bend and the range of motion and all of that. You know, at the end of the day, it's animation. The software doesn't, besides its constraints, it doesn't know what looks good. So that's all the artistry. That's all up to you. I'm going to rotate here. Rotate seems to have better results in this case than translating. So I'm just going to flex the hand into a fist. Might have to clean up a finger or two. Like this pinky. Oops. Just make sure that they're not running into each other. Then maybe I'll bend the thumb as well. If you get too close to the model, you'll start to see through it, which is a little annoying. You can modify that camera clipping in the settings. I'm just going to leave it where it is right now. I think that's okay for right now. Like I said, animation takes a long time. And if you wanted that thumb to be on the inside of the fingers, you might have to animate it in a different order. You know, have the thumb move before the fingers move. We can get really complex with this. I'm gonna go keep things fairly simple right now, add another key. So if I scrub back, I should say the hand open up, and then the hand closes and it opens up again. I'm gonna go into model view mode. Scrub. hand closes, hand opens back up. See what this looks like in real time. It's another important thing is think about how long it takes to do these actions. Well, that's not so bad. I don't know. Would it make sense to flex your hand like that? I don't know, maybe ball your fists together if you're angry or something. This animation is about walking with wonder, so I don't know if that would be appropriate or not, but you know, you can use your artistry for that. I'm gonna slow this down to 0.25 speed and play it back and take a look. Yeah, that's fine. It clips through a little bit there, but that's an elbow problem, not a finger problem. Yeah, I think that's okay for the fingers. If you ever miss your keyframes, like where are my keyframes at, it's because you're not selected on the joints anymore. You're only going to see keyframes for joints that you have selected on. So, hurrah, I did 2 seconds of hand animation. So now if I want to edit this or save this out, or maybe I'll clip it down really, really tightly to the animation itself, or the animation that I modified. And go back up to normal speed. Play. I'll stop this, crop this even tighter. Go to 1100 in here. And then maybe 1250. Cool. So after you've done all this, and I would highly suggest that you save a working file and you call it control rig and maybe increment as you're working on things. You don't want to spend a lot of time animating and then you make a mistake, you can't undo, the program crashes. You don't want to lose that work. It takes a lot of time to animate things. Don't just save once at the end. That's a recipe for disaster. So after I'm happy with this, I need to save it down to a skeleton again to be able to export into Unreal. So if I go to the blue button again, plot skeleton, I can save it as a skeleton. So again, do this at the end. Once you plot to skeleton, you're effectively removing the control rig and saving it as a skeleton. So I'm going to go ahead and bake to skeleton, and it baked already. So save as. I'll just call this RPM new fingers. Save. What do you want to save? I just want to save the animation, not the T-pose. All right, take this back over to Unreal. New level, basic, content drawer. Let's import new fingers. In this case, I don't have a skeleton already. I'm just going to import the mesh and the skeleton all together. I don't even really care about materials right now. I just want to show you all the animation coming over into Unreal. You may get yellow warnings from Unreal when you import skeletal meshes. Don't freak out. It's almost always all right. You'll get stuff about smoothing groups, or maybe the root position isn't in the right spot. As long as it's a yellow warning and not a red warning, it's all right. So here we go. In Unreal, flexes the hand and then goes about their business. This was something I didn't talk about, but you can trim in Unreal as well. if I picked at 20 frames here, I right click and I say remove 0 to 20 frames or remove after. So if I remove here, I've cropped it. If I crop it even tighter, I mean, I think it's better to crop it in Motion Builder, but rather than go back through the entire pipeline again, you can quickly do these things here as well. Now I just have pretty much the hand animation. Cool. So yeah, animating fingers is specifically here I looked at, but and look that hand right there looks so much better than the knife hand animation. So put a little time working on the fingers, it'll look a lot better. See ya.